So, good morning, everybody. I hope you are enjoying a nice cup of coffee, or maybe you're already at lunch. I don't know from which regions you are calling me, but I really hope that you are ready for the upcoming event today. I think we have a great lineup of great speakers that are all adding great value to the acceleration of the development of new electrocatalysts. So first, I want to start with a short introduction about Material Pioneer. So what is the event that you are watching today or joining today, and why did we start building? So materials are very important in our daily life. And on this beautiful planet of ours, we have two very important ecosystems, organics and inorganics. And while most of the event today will focus on inorganics and one particular type, electrocatalyst, I also would like to give a short introduction on what is happening in the organic space to give you some inspiration about what we can expect in the coming years to happen or to take shape in the inorganic. So materials, as mentioned, they are shaping our society. They are shaping our capabilities as humankind to do what we can do on a daily basis. And we take them for granted in most cases. We all use things like the smartphone, which is a magnificent piece of shaped materials with very complicated mixtures to make all the things happen. So our evolution as species, you can see it from the way we are using and processing materials, all the way from the Stone Age until now we are in the Silicon Age, where advanced computing is dominating most of our work and our daily life. And the advancements in computing and the power that we are unlocking is also the enabling innovation of our era across a variety of different industries. So you hear a lot of people talk about AI, blockchain, cryptocurrency, big data, automation, IoT. It all comes down to this advancement in computing. It all comes down into our ability to crop those computer chips smaller and with more precision. And today I want to explain in the introduction that every physical world that we can connect to this digital, rapidly innovating power is about to become disrupted. And in the case of organics, it's all about synthetic biology. In the case of inorganic materials, it's all about advanced materials. And I will highlight both of them shortly. So in the organics, most of the processes we develop are all based on crude oil. So some fragments of the crude oil we can use as basic chemicals in chemistry refinement processes to make all the organic compounds that we know, plastics, medicines, additives, lubricants, or oils and lube compounds. But then we know that we need to become less dependent on crude oil. So that's why we started to think about different possibilities. Since a very long time, we already used microorganisms, yeast, to produce beer or produce the carbon dioxide and the alcohol in our beer. And this same phenomena we are currently using in something we call synthetic biology. So what we are able to do now is design new DNA in this digital world, program it, make it, incorporate it into a living microorganism, and then apply large-scale fermentation to produce new compounds at large scale. So instead of making beer, we can make insulin, or we can make other high valuable compounds. And this process, the ecosystem of synthetic biology, has seen tremendous progress because the cost and the time needed to synthesize new DNA or read new DNA has dropped almost exponentially. And one of the key factors was the Human Genome Project, which I will highlight slightly later. So what you now see is that companies are leveraging all the power of the digital world, artificial intelligence or machine learning algorithms, but also high levels of automation to do all the manual tasks in the lab. And then they have this very fast DNA synthesis and sequencing in between to do research on steroids, to really perform more experiments faster, cheaper, and with more precision. A great example is Zymergen. Even though they are somewhat struggling in the last few months with getting their products out into the market. I think the basics that they are developing is still very solid. So what you can see on this picture is a fully automated lab where no humans are intervening in the process. And they are really trying to push beyond the bounds of human intuition and to search through more complicated data sets by just doing high throughput experimentation in a very sophisticated way. And by doing this, they already reduced the development time from 10 years down to 2 years. Tremendous progress. Besides Cymergen, we've seen the growth of a whole ecosystem around synthetic biology. Companies making biofuels, jet fuels, proteins, fertilizers, any organic compound that you can think of that was normally derived from fossil fuels can now be synthesized or is about to be synthesized using these microorganisms. Again, it all started to accelerate by the Human Genome Project, which was a big achievement of humankind. I think it cost a few $1 billion. More than 200 researchers globally were using or working on it to understand the human genome. So to really read the full human genome. At the moment, the same work can be done with just €100 or something. You can send some of your saliva to a company and they can extract your whole DNA profile out of it. But when the Human Genome Project started, this was a very labor-intensive project. And we at Material Pioneers, we were inspired by what we saw in the Human Genome Project and all that came afterwards. And that's also what we are trying to do, but then for the inorganic space, which is still a very slow and not so rapidly evolving field. So in the inorganics, most of the materials are made by extracting them first from the Earth's crust. You get them as bulk materials. We mix them at a large scale to get the right composition, like for stainless steel, and then you get new materials with specific properties. But now there is a new paradigm coming up, which is the paradigm that we don't only mix materials, but that we convert the bulk materials into nanostructured materials or nanoparticles, however you would like to call them. And by doing this, we are leveraging quantum mechanics, physics that is happening at a very small scale to, again, have another dimension to change material properties. And the properties that we are able to change are melting temperature, stiffness, electrical and thermal conductivity, optical properties of a material, the chemical interaction. This is something that we will be highlighting today a lot through the development of electrocatalyst, but also electromagnetic properties. So all those properties are very important in a variety of high-tech products. So it's a great value that we can now unlock new quantum properties by breaking those building materials up into nanomaterials. So here you can see an example. So this is a very beautiful high-resolution image of a gold nanoparticle, and you can see the separated gold atoms. And you see that if you break up gold into very small nanoparticles, so you can see the particle diameter on one axis, that the melting temperature takes this exponential decay, especially in this small scale. And this is what we think is very interesting, because if you are able to control the size very accurately in this field, then you are able to control, in this case, the melting temperature, but also the other physical properties in a very sophisticated manner. So from our belief, I think there's a lot of overlap between what you see in synthetic biology, where base pairs are determining the function of DNA, and DNA is determining the function of the microorganism. In the advanced material, you have the atom, which is dominating the properties of the nanoparticle. So if you have in a particle atoms of gold and silver combined, then again, mixing those elements together in a nanoparticle are changing the physical properties of that nanoparticle. And then the nanoparticle determines how well, let's say, a solar cell is able to absorb sunlight and convert it into useful electricity. And most importantly, nanostructured materials, they are really the key enabler from my perspective into the zero carbon age. So there are many technologies that are still in a very early stage of development that need to be rapidly accelerated into the coming decades to be in time deployed in large scale towards 2050, when we want to decarbonize our society and stop emitting carbon dioxide. But the essence that is holding back the inorganic space is that there is no direct connection between this rapidly evolving digital world of machine learning, big data, automation, and the world of inorganic nanoparticles. We don't have this next generation sequencing and synthesis that they already have in the inorganic space. So the problem that everybody is facing, most of the speakers today, is that they need to go through this trial and error discovery process. So you design a new material, a certain nanoparticle or a nanostructured material, you build it, you test it, you learn from it. But in most cases, you need to go through hundreds, maybe thousands of these cycles to really find the right material. And if you know that one of these cycles could already take up months of complicated chemistry in your lab, you can understand that 100 to 1,000 cycles brings you into the 10-year domain. So it already takes 10 years to develop and find the desired material that boosts the performance of your product. And then again, it takes another 5 years to scale this material from your lab all the way to high volume production before you're able to introduce it into the market. So combining those two phases, you can see that in the end, it takes roughly 15 years to find a new material and introduce it into the market, which is a very uncertain process. It's time consuming, it's highly costly. It costs upwards to hundreds of millions to do this whole process because you need to maintain a lab, you need to maintain scientists, you need to maintain equipment for a very long time. And along the whole process, there's a big uncertainty that you're not able to make it to the final step, large-scale production. And this is also really the fundamental problem that VSPARTICLE would like to solve, but we also know that we are not able to solve this on our own. At least the thing that we are doing is trying to establish this connection. So we developed a brand new technology that is able to make this connection between the digital world and the world of nanoparticles. And I can show you a short movie of one of the products that we already have commercially available that is enabling researchers to synthesize their desired nanoparticles in a very simplistic and short manner.
Welcome to the S1 deposition tutorial.
So you're not able to hear sound, I think, which is fine. I will give you some background information. So this is Thomas, which is our head of software development or data team, but he's giving you this demo of this product. So this system, or these two, the combination of these two systems is really optimized for I would say, fundamental nanoparticle studies. So don't think about producing big amounts of material. It's really about very small amounts of material for fundamental in situ TEM or in situ AFM type of studies. So he puts in a piece of silicon wafer on which he would like to have a specific size of nanoparticles because he's interested in the physical properties of that specific particle. He starts the system and then he can operate everything from his web interface. So he doesn't need to go into the lab and do all kinds of wet chemical synthesis. He can just determine the particle size. In this case, it's 3.2 nanometer. And then he says how much particles he would like to have on the surface. He starts the system. He could go out, drink a cup of coffee, and then while doing that, you can see the operation of the system and whether or not it's stable. And then in half an hour, the desired nanoparticles are synthesized. He can shut down the system and starts continuing his work. And this is really why both me, but also all my colleagues at VSPARTICLE are working day in, day out to make this connection a reality and to help people accelerate this field. And again, we believe that by establishing this connection between the digital world and the world of physical nanoparticles or nanomaterials, we are now for the first time also able to make this research on steroids, where we are just automating the whole process, and closing the loop, and analyzing hundreds, maybe thousands of materials per year. But still, accelerating this field is too complicated for just us to do. So that's why we also started with material pioneers, because we don't want to, we are not able to do it on ourselves. So we need to build a rich ecosystem of different companies and different institutes and different people that are all able to contribute effectively to accelerating this design, build, test, learn cycle. And that's also the program of today. So you will see different speakers that are all adding their view onto this process, that are all adding their expertise into this field. And together, I think we can determine a very advanced roadmap to really accelerate this field in general. So I hope this was a good introduction in why Material Pioneers has been founded by VSPARTICLE, but why it also is very important to bring together all different stakeholders in this field to make sure that we are accelerating this field as much as possible, to make sure that we are in timeline for 2050 when all those new materials need to be deployed at large scale.